What's up, Illumineers? Welcome back to Inkspot Games. My name is Matt, and this is another installation of our How to Play Lorcana series. And this is actually a pretty important one to watch because we're going to be talking out a new mechanic that's being introduced to the game, and that will be an integral part of this game moving forward. This isn't something that just some weird gimmick that's going away. This is going to be such an important part of the game, and we're going to talk all about it, how it works, and all that good stuff. But before we get to all that, please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends who are also just learning Lorcana and need to learn about this stuff as well. And I hope that this will be helpful to you and helpful to them. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So we're going to be talking about the introduction of locations in Lorcana. This is a brand new mechanic in the game. It is something that some people are kind of confused by, like how it works. The card looks different. There's some different symbols. Some of the symbols on here just look different based on what we've seen. There's different effects. Certain cards have to do with locations, all that stuff. And we're just going to kind of break down what each thing means on a location card. So here's an example of just kind of a regular sort of vanilla location, and this is Neverland's Mermaid Lagoon. So as you can see, this card's framing and everything is horizontal and not vertical. It almost looks like in the position it's in, it's like exerted, but these are how lands are not lands. Lands are in Magic. These are locations. This is how the locations are going to look in the game, and when you play a location, this is how you play it. They don't ready, they don't exert, nothing like that. They're just there, and this is what they are. So if we look at the actual card, obviously we have the name of the location and sort of the subname here. It says location. I don't know if there's going to be any different keywords that's going to go with this. And just like any other Lorcana card, down here it'll say either the effect, the flavor text, or both. In this case, this one doesn't have a specific effect. It's just vanilla, has flavor text, all that good stuff. So just like any other Lorcana card, if we look up here on the top right, we have our ink cost. No, this is a dash. This is a 1. If you were to turn it vertically, it would be the 1 cost. So obviously we have our ink cost up here. We have whether it's inkable or not, this little symbol right here, just like a regular Lorcana card, so nothing too new there. We have this symbol right here, which on a character is its willpower, or blocking rather, its defense, and that's how much defense it has. Now, if you notice, so yeah, this is all the same. If you notice all the way on the left here, we have a different symbol. Now, usually next to the blocking, it would kind of be the attack value, right? How much damage a character would deal to another character if they were to challenge. And this symbol is actually different. This symbol right here with the number, this is how much it costs to move a character to the location. We'll get to that in a second, but it's really important to note that's what this symbol is. This isn't an attack value. You can't challenge with a location, I guess, unless it says otherwise, but I don't see how that would work. This isn't that. This is the cost, how much it costs to move a character to the location. Now, if we go next to the right of the flavor text here, right here, it looks like your typical lore symbol, but it looks a little different. It's not all white. It's transparent with kind of like a black dot in the middle. It looks a little different than your regular lore. So this is basically going to be what we call passive lore. And again, we'll get into the mechanics of that in a second, but you do gain lore from locations. We'll talk about how one sec, but that's what this is. So again, just to recap, the ink cost, whether it's inkable or not, we have its blocking value on the right over here, how much it costs to move a character to the location over here, and then our passive lore. So how exactly do these work then? Once you play the location, what exactly is that location doing? Okay, so any character, unless it says otherwise, can move to a location, but you need to pay the location cost. So in this case for Neverland, if you want to move, let's say just any character over here, then you would have to pay 1 ink to move that character over here. Now, it's also worth noting that when you play a location, it doesn't come into the game like wet. It doesn't need to dry. It comes into the game active. Think about almost like an item, where when you play an item, it doesn't need to dry in order for it to be used. Same thing with a location. You play it, and then you can do whatever you need to do with it. Now, moving characters to the location, like we said, this is how much it costs to do it. Now, you can move any active character to the location. The character does not need to be dry, and also the character does not need to be exerted in order to move it to the location, meaning that once it gets moved, it can stay readied on the location. So once the character is on the location, it can trigger different effects, do different things, but once the character is on that location, it can't come off. The only time that can happen is if you're moving from one location to another location on your board, but you can't just move it off of the location. The only time the character can come off of the location is if the location is banished for whatever reason. Basically, any character that is at the location kind of just falls off and isn't on the location anymore. Characters aren't banished when the location is banished unless the card says otherwise. Characters are still in there, but they fall off the location. Now, like I said, you can move from one location on your board to another location on your board, but they can't come off of it. That's a really important thing to remember when regarding character movement to the location. And then obviously your character can do just all the stuff it would normally do, quest, all that good stuff while on the location. Activate certain effects while on that location, all that good stuff. Now, this little lore counter here, when it comes to locations, again, like I said, passive lore at the start of your turn. So I guess at the set part or whatever set part of your turn, this is how much lore that location will gain you at the start of your turn. So if this location is on the board, your opponent ends their turn, you ready everything, you set. In that moment, you are gaining the amount of lore that is on this location. Not all locations have lore on them. Some locations have a lot of lore on them, but that is actually a pretty big part of locations, is kind of this passive lore gain as time goes on. So yeah, at the start of your turn, you gain lore equal to the lore counter on the location. So how do we get rid of locations? Well, you can challenge them or deal damage to them. But obviously, if you're dealing damage to them, the card needs to be specific and say that you're dealing damage to a location. But any character can challenge a location. You're obviously not going to take damage from challenging a location because locations don't have attack. And there's most likely going to be cards released that can specifically deal damage to a location to remove them easier. So yeah, that's basically how you remove the location. And like I said, if your character is on a location when it gets banished, that character isn't banished with it. They just kind of fall off and are back to regular play. So those are some different ways you can get rid of a location. A couple things to kind of clarify. I said earlier, you can jump from one location to the other. You can't jump from like a location on your side of the field to your opponent's side. It has to be on your side. Just a little clarification there. Locations don't quest, they don't challenge. You know, they're just kind of there. And you can have as many characters on a location as you want, again, unless the location says otherwise, but there's no restriction to how many characters you can have on that location. So there's probably going to be strategies where you're bouncing characters around to different locations, and those locations are going to trigger effects, whether the character has an effect that has to do with locations, or the location itself has an effect that activates when a character goes to it. So it's a very, very interesting mechanic, and it's going to be a key mechanic moving forward that's not really going anywhere. So yeah, those are the basics of locations. Obviously we have Neverland here, we have a similar one, DeVille Manor here. Here's one, Montanui, cost 2, inkable, 5 blocking, and here's one with an effect. Whenever a character is banished while here, so obviously in order for this effect to trigger, the character needs to be on this location. You may put that card into your inkwell face down and exert it, basically like the Grammatala effect, but like certain words like while here, like this won't trigger if any of your characters are banished. The character has to be on the location, and it also gains a lore as well at the start of your turn. You know, here's another one, Forbidden Mountain. This one has 6 blocking, is 2 inkable. So there's a couple interesting inks that have been released here. Here is one, Agrabah, and this one's pretty good. Can give you 2 lore at the start of your turn, cost 3. So like, who knows? These locations can kind of power creep certain characters, and it'll be really, really interesting to experiment with these and see how they go. So yeah, those are the basics on how locations work. It might seem weird at first, but put into practice, it'll start to make more sense. So yeah, this was just a quick overview for anyone who didn't really know what the whole location deal was. Hopefully it's not too complicated, and it'll make some really, really interesting gameplay. So Illumineers, until next time, I'll see you on the next one. Later.